God's kingdom economy. Why your bank account is about to experience a miracle. Beloved, listen carefully, because what I'm about to say may change the way you see your life forever. Your bank account is not your source. Your job is not your provider. The economy of this world is not your system. God's kingdom is your source, and His economy never fails. You may look at your finances today and feel discouraged. You may see lack, delay, or even impossibility. But I declare to you, what you see is not the final reality. In God's kingdom, there is a higher law, a supernatural economy that operates beyond human limitation. The Bible says, "My God shall supply all your needs according to His riches in glory." Not according to your salary, not according to your business, but according to His riches. And let me tell you, God is not bankrupt. Heaven has no recession. There is no inflation in the kingdom of God. So why do many believers struggle financially? Because they are living in two systems at the same time. They believe in God, but they depend on the world. They pray, but they fear. They give, but they doubt. Today, that must change. Faith is the key that unlocks God's economy. When you begin to see with spiritual eyes, you will realize that provision is already prepared. Before the need arises, God has already made a way. But you must step into that reality through faith. Seed is another powerful principle. In God's kingdom, your giving is not a loss, it is a transaction. When you sow, you activate divine multiplication. A small seed in your hand can become a miracle in your future. Do not look at the size of your seed, look at the power of your God. Some of you are waiting for a financial breakthrough, but God is waiting for your obedience. He is waiting for your faith to rise, for your giving to align, and for your heart to trust Him completely. I prophesy over your life today. Your season is changing. What was blocked will open. What was delayed will accelerate. What seemed impossible will become your testimony. Your bank account will not just increase, it will experience a miracle. Not because of luck, not because of chance, but because you are stepping into God's kingdom economy. Lift your heart and say, "Lord, I trust you as my source. I believe in your provision. I step into your economy, and as you do, watch what happens. Doors will open that no man can shut. Opportunities will find you. Favor will surround you, and provision will chase you down." This is not just a message, it is a divine invitation. Step out of fear, step out of limitation, step into faith. Because your miracle is not coming someday, it is beginning now. Many people have been taught to measure their security by what they see, their salary, their savings, their business performance, or the stability of the economy around them. But this mindset quietly limits what God wants to do in your life. When you look to your job as your source, you reduce your future to the boundaries of human systems. When you depend only on your bank balance, your peace will rise and fall with every transaction. This is not how God designed you to live. In the kingdom of God, your source is not something earthly, it is someone eternal. God is not limited by economic downturns, job markets, or financial crises. He is not affected by inflation, recession, or instability. While the world operates on supply and demand, God operates on abundance and divine provision. This means that even when everything around you looks uncertain, your supply remains secure because it is rooted in Him. The problem many believers face is not that God is unwilling to provide, but that they have misplaced their trust. Trust is powerful. Whatever you trust becomes your source. If your confidence is in your employer, then fear will come when that job is threatened. If your confidence is in people, then disappointment will follow when they fail you. But when your trust is fully in God, you step into a different level of peace because He never fails, never changes, and never runs out. Understanding God as your source changes how you think, speak, and act. Instead of saying, I don't have enough, you begin to say, my God will supply. Instead of worrying about tomorrow, you begin to walk in confidence, knowing that provision is already prepared ahead of you. This shift is not just positive thinking, it is spiritual alignment with truth. And when your mind aligns with God's truth, your life begins to reflect His promises. This does not mean you stop working or neglect responsibility. Your job is still important, but it becomes a channel, not the source. It is one of the ways God chooses to provide, but it is not the limit of His provision. When you see your job as the source, you close the door to other possibilities. But when you see God as your source, you open yourself to unexpected opportunities, divine connections, and supernatural favor. There are moments in life when your natural resources will not be enough. Times when your income cannot meet your needs, when your plans fall apart, or when doors close unexpectedly. These moments are not meant to destroy you. They are invitations to shift your dependence. God allows these situations to remind you that your life is sustained by Him, not by human systems. It is in these moments that miracles are born. When you truly believe God is your source, fear loses its grip. You are no longer controlled by what you see, because you are anchored in what you believe. Anxiety begins to fade because your confidence is no longer tied to temporary things. Even in uncertainty, there is a quiet assurance inside you that says, I will not lack. Living this way requires a daily decision. You choose where to place your trust. You choose what voice to believe. The world will always try to pull you back into fear, telling you to rely only on what is visible. But faith calls you higher, inviting you to depend on the unseen reality of God's provision. And as you continue to trust Him, you will begin to experience a flow of provision that cannot be explained by logic alone. There is a system that governs this world, and it is built on limitation. It responds to supply and demand, competition, scarcity, and uncertainty. People are taught to survive by calculating risks, protecting resources, and striving endlessly to get ahead. In this system, fear often becomes a silent driver. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing what you have, fear of the future. But God's kingdom operates on a completely different system, one that is not bound by human limitation or natural laws. God's economy is not controlled by circumstances. It is governed by His nature, and His nature is abundance, faithfulness, and provision. What the world calls impossible, God calls normal. In His kingdom, provision does not depend on what is available in the natural. It flows from what is already prepared in the spiritual. This is why even in times of global crisis, there are people who still experience increase, favor, and unexpected breakthroughs. They are not operating under the world's system. They are living under God's. To understand this higher economy, you must first renew your mindset. If you continue to think like the world, you will remain limited by it. The world says there is not enough, but God says, I am more than enough. The world says, hold tightly to what you have, but God says, give, and it will be given to you. These principles seem opposite, even uncomfortable, but they are the foundation of how God's kingdom works. In this divine system, lack is not the final reality. It may appear real in the moment, but it does not have the authority to define your future. God's economy is built on promises that cannot fail. When He speaks provision, it is already established even before it becomes visible. This means your breakthrough is not something you are trying to create. It is something you are stepping into through faith and alignment. Another key difference in God's economy is that it values obedience over calculation. The world teaches you to make decisions based on logic and visible outcomes, but God often leads you in ways that require trust beyond understanding. Sometimes He will prompt you to give when it does not make sense, to step out when you feel unqualified, or to trust Him when there is no clear evidence. These moments are not tests to harm you. They are opportunities to activate the supernatural flow of His provision. Timing also works differently in God's system. The world runs on deadlines and pressure, but God moves in seasons. There may be times of waiting where nothing seems to change and it can feel frustrating. But in those seasons, God is preparing something greater than what you can see. When the appointed time comes, things can shift suddenly. Doors open, opportunities align, and provision flows in ways that seem accelerated. What looked delayed was actually being positioned for the right moment. Favor is another dimension of this higher economy. In the world, advancement often depends on qualifications, connections, or effort alone. But in God's kingdom, favor can open doors that no amount of effort could achieve. It can bring the right people into your life, create opportunities you did not seek, and position you in places you never imagined. This favor is not earned in the traditional sense. It flows from your relationship with God and your alignment with His will. Living in this system requires a shift from striving to trusting. It does not mean you stop working or planning, but your confidence is no longer rooted in your own ability. Instead, you begin to recognize that God is actively involved in every detail of your life. You become aware that your provision is not something you must force into existence, but something that flows from staying connected to Him. As this understanding grows, your perspective on lack begins to change. Instead of reacting with fear, you respond with faith. Instead of focusing on what is missing, you become aware of what God has already promised. And as you align yourself with His kingdom principles, you begin to experience a reality that goes beyond what the world can offer. One marked by peace, confidence, and a steady flow of provision that cannot be explained by natural means. Faith is not just a religious idea or a comforting belief. It is a spiritual force that connects you to the reality of God's provision. Many people say they believe, but their daily thoughts and reactions are still controlled by fear. True faith goes beyond words. It is a deep, unshakable confidence in God's ability and willingness to provide, even when there is no visible evidence. In the natural world, people are trained to rely on what they can see, measure, and control. If the numbers look good, they feel secure. If the situation appears uncertain, they become anxious. But faith operates in the opposite direction. It begins where human understanding ends. It chooses to trust God's promise, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. This is not denial of reality. It is a decision to believe in a higher reality. When you activate faith, you are stepping into agreement with what God has already declared. Provision is not something you beg for repeatedly as if it were uncertain. It is something you receive with confidence because God has already promised to supply your needs. Faith shifts your posture from desperation to expectation. Instead of wondering if something will happen, you begin to live as though it is already on the way. Fear is the greatest enemy of faith because it distorts your perception. It magnifies problems and minimizes God's power. It causes you to focus on what you lack instead of what is available through Him. When fear dominates, it can paralyze your actions, making you hesitant, doubtful, and closed to opportunity. But when faith rises, it replaces fear with assurance. It brings clarity where there was confusion and boldness where there was hesitation. Developing faith requires intentional focus. You cannot feed your mind with worry, negativity, and doubt and expect faith to grow. What you consistently think about will shape what you believe. When you meditate on God's promises and remind yourself of His faithfulness, your confidence begins to strengthen. Over time, this creates a foundation that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. Faith also expresses itself through action. It is not passive. When you truly believe that God is your provider, your decisions begin to reflect that belief. You step forward when opportunities arise, even if they feel uncertain. You remain steady in times of delay instead of reacting impulsively. You give, serve, and move with a sense of purpose, knowing that your actions are aligned with something greater than what you can see. There will be moments when your faith is tested. Situations may arise that challenge everything you believe. In those times, it may feel easier to fall back into fear or doubt. But these moments are critical because they reveal where your trust truly lies. Faith grows strongest when it is exercised under pressure. Each time you choose to trust God despite uncertainty, your confidence becomes deeper and more resilient. Another important aspect of faith is patience. In a world that demands immediate results, waiting can feel uncomfortable. But faith understands that God's timing is purposeful. Just because something has not appeared yet does not mean it is not already in motion. There is often a process happening behind the scenes, alignments, preparations, and unseen work that must take place before the manifestation becomes visible. As your faith matures, your perspective begins to change. You are no longer controlled by temporary setbacks or delays. Instead, you develop a quiet assurance that remains steady regardless of what is happening around you. This assurance is not based on circumstances, but on your relationship with God and your trust in His character. Living by faith transforms the way you experience life. It opens your eyes to possibilities that others may overlook. It allows you to remain peaceful in uncertainty and confident in seasons of waiting. And as you continue to walk in faith, you begin to see evidence of God's provision appearing in ways that confirm His promises and strengthen your trust even further. In God's kingdom, giving is not viewed the way the world sees it. In the natural mindset, when you give something away, it is gone. It is counted as a loss, a reduction, a sacrifice that leaves you with less than before. But in the spiritual reality of God's economy, giving is not the end of something. It is the beginning of something greater. It is a seed, and every seed carries within it the potential for multiplication. A seed may look small, even insignificant, but its true power is hidden inside. When placed in the right environment, it grows beyond its original form and produces far more than what was planted. This is how God designed the principle of seed and harvest to work. What you release in faith does not disappear. It enters into a process that leads to increase. The challenge is that this process is often invisible at first. which is why many people struggle to trust it. When you give with the right heart, you are not just transferring resources, you are activating a spiritual law. This law does not depend on the condition of the economy or the amount you give. It responds to faith, obedience, and intention. A small seed given with trust can produce a harvest that exceeds human expectation. On the other hand, even large amounts given with fear or reluctance may not produce the same result, because the principle is not only about the action, but also about the condition of the heart. The world teaches you to hold on tightly to what you have, especially in times of uncertainty. It encourages you to protect, to store, and to limit your giving when resources feel scarce. But God's kingdom invites you into a different way of living, one that requires trust over fear. When you choose to give, even when it feels uncomfortable, you are making a powerful declaration that your source is not limited to what is currently in your hands. Giving also breaks the mindset of lack. When you are constantly focused on what you do not have, it creates a cycle of fear and limitation. But when you begin to give even in small ways, it shifts your focus. It reminds you that you are not empty, that you have something to release, and that your life is connected to a greater flow of provision. This shift in perspective opens the door for increase, because you are no longer operating from a place of scarcity. Another important aspect of this principle is consistency. A farmer does not plant one seed and expect a lifetime harvest. There is a pattern of sowing, waiting, and reaping. In the same way, living in God's kingdom economy involves a lifestyle of giving, not a one-time act. Each seed you sow contributes to a larger harvest that unfolds over time. Some seeds may produce quickly, while others take longer, but none are wasted when they are planted in faith. There is also a connection between what you sow and what you reap. This does not mean that every result will come in the exact same form as what you gave, but the principle of multiplication remains consistent. When you sow generosity, you open yourself to receive generosity. When you sow with a willing heart, you position yourself to experience provision in ways that may come through different channels: opportunities, relationships, favor, or unexpected breakthroughs. Patience is essential in this process because the harvest does not appear immediately. There is a season where nothing seems to happen, and this is where many people lose confidence. They begin to question whether their giving made any difference. But just as a seed grows beneath the surface before it becomes visible, your giving is working in ways you cannot yet see. The delay is not a denial. It is part of the process of growth and multiplication. Trusting this principle requires you to look beyond the moment and believe in the outcome. It invites you to live with an open hand instead of a closed one, to release rather than to cling, and to expect increase rather than fear loss. As you continue to sow with faith and consistency, you begin to experience a flow that goes beyond natural explanation, where what you release returns in ways that reflect not just addition, but true multiplication. Obedience is one of the most overlooked yet powerful principles in experiencing God's provision. Many people desire breakthrough, increase, and financial miracles, but they often focus only on what they want God to do, while ignoring what God is asking them to do. In God's kingdom, provision is not random. It is closely connected to alignment. When your actions align with His direction, you position yourself for a flow of blessing that cannot be explained by natural means. Obedience is not always comfortable or logical. There are moments when God may prompt you to take a step that does not make sense based on your current situation. He may ask you to give when your resources feel limited, to step into an opportunity that feels uncertain, or to trust Him in a season where nothing seems to be changing. These moments are not meant to confuse you. They are invitations to move beyond human reasoning and enter into a deeper level of trust. The challenge with obedience is that it requires surrender. It asks you to release control and let go of the need to understand everything before you act. In a world that values independence and self-reliance, this can feel uncomfortable. But in God's system, surrender is not weakness, it is strength. It opens the door for God to work in ways that go beyond your own ability. Delayed obedience can be just as limiting as disobedience. When you hesitate or postpone what you sense God is leading you to do, you may unknowingly delay the very breakthrough you are praying for. Timing matters in the kingdom of God. There are moments when a simple act of obedience can unlock a chain of events that lead to provision, favor, and opportunity. Missing that moment can mean missing the alignment that was prepared for you. Obedience also builds sensitivity to God's voice. The more you respond to His leading, the more clearly you begin to recognize it. At first, it may feel uncertain, like a gentle impression or a quiet prompting. But as you continue to act on it, your confidence grows. You begin to distinguish between fear and guidance, between doubt and direction. This clarity becomes essential because God often leads in ways that are subtle rather than dramatic. Another important aspect of obedience is that it shifts your focus from results to relationship. Instead of acting only when you see a guaranteed outcome, you begin to act because you trust the one who is leading you. This creates a deeper connection with God, where your decisions are no longer driven by external pressure, but by internal conviction. In this place, even small acts of obedience carry great significance because they are rooted in trust. Obedience does not mean perfection. There may be times when you misunderstand, hesitate, or even make mistakes. But what matters is your willingness to respond and adjust. God is not looking for flawless performance. He is looking for a heart that is open and responsive. When you maintain that posture, He is able to guide you, correct you, and lead you into the right path. There is also a compounding effect to obedience. Each step you take builds upon the previous one. What may seem like a small decision today can lead to greater opportunities tomorrow. Over time, these steps create a pathway that positions you in places of influence, provision, and impact. What once seemed ordinary becomes part of a larger picture that reveals God's hand at work in your life. Obedience often precedes manifestation. Before you see the result, there is usually a step that requires faith. It may not appear significant at the moment, but it carries the potential to unlock something greater. When you choose to act in alignment with God's direction, you are not just responding to a command. You are stepping into a prepared outcome that has already been established in the spiritual realm. Conclusion of entire speech. What you have heard is not just inspiration, it is a call to transformation. You are not bound to the limitations of this world system. You are invited into a higher reality where God is your source, His economy is your supply, faith is your access, your seed is your strategy, and your obedience is your pathway. Everything begins to change when you shift your trust, when you stop looking at what is in your hand and start believing in who God is. Something powerful is activated. Fear begins to lose its voice. Doubt begins to fade, and expectation begins to rise within you. You are no longer reacting to circumstances. you are responding to promises. This is the moment to align your heart, your thoughts, and your actions with God's kingdom. Step fully into faith, believe it, and walk in it, because your miracle has already begun.